Enrollment numbers, disappointing. The number of cancellations, growing. Premiums, rising. The healthcare site, still embarrassing. And as the apologies keep on coming, some influential Democrats now calling for a single-payer system, which is leading some to ask, was the healthcare law designed to fail all along to force the need for government-run care for all? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Butner. This is Bulls and Bears. Here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Tracy Burns, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Jamu Green. Welcome to everybody. So lots of folks complaining this healthcare thing isn't going as planned. But Gary B., you say it's going exactly as planned. What do you mean?
I do, Brenda. I think they want to get to the point where government controls everything, a.k.a. the single-payer system where government is in charge of all of health care. You know, you saw that little clip that John Podesta pointed out, kind of pointing the way like Medicare is for a single-payer system. I find the whole idea laughable, especially after we've been through the past few months with just a single Obamacare, the federal website, totally inept. I mean, the president himself said in the press conference Thursday, you know, geez, this health insurance thing is complicated. I mean, could you imagine going to a startup called Amazon and they send out a note, hey, sorry for the problems, retail is complicated. I mean, the idea of government controlling health insurance, it would surely send us back into the Depression.
Jamu, you don't necessarily agree, right? Getting to single payer is not necessarily a bad thing, according to you.
No, Brenda, it's not. But as to the folks who are living or think they're living in an episode of The X-Files, that was not the plan all along. I mean, there couldn't be more space in between Obamacare and the single-payer health care system. But look, we do have single-payer health care already in this country. It's called Medicare. And guess what? Medicare has a higher approval rating than all private health insurance.
Well, Tracy, what about Obamacare? The approval ratings are just going down like that. What do you think? Are we headed to a single-payer system?
God, I hope not, Brenda. Look, I don't think it's very conspiratorial. I think they were just kind of dumb. They didn't read it. They had no idea what they passed. It was incompetence from left to right, down to now the website. A single-payer system would be so bad for this country. I get the notion that we have to sort of get some preventative care out there and things like that. But the way that they're talking about doing this, God, it's like taking you back to the Kremlin. It's crazy.
Well, Jonas, anybody who's been to the DMV or the post office isn't quite sure that they want the government to run the entire thing. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the problem with Gary B's conspiracy theory is it doesn't explain the other hundreds of government sites that are just as badly managed and run. And if a lot of people tried to visit the SEC's website when the show airs, it would crash as well. So it's not like they have to orchestrate this to make it look bad. It was going to look bad the minute they were in charge of a website, frankly, because all their government websites are terrible. Now, as far as what's better, I do think the public actually would have preferred a single-payer Medicare type system to this sort of Frankenstein system that is built around the old system and was kind of designed by various lobbying groups in the healthcare industry. That's who really wanted more healthcare, and everybody mandates that they get a certain high-quality level of health insurance. I think the public, if they could have just opted into Medicare below age 65, would have been, or kept their health insurance, would have been a simple message, easier to implement, probably cost the government less in the long run to do than this working around the existing system. So I think it was a mess up. But I don't think it was designed to mess up so we could get to that. They're never going to get to that now after this sort of screw up.
Okay, John, single-payer system, is it more or less expensive for us? What does it do to the economy?
It'll be more expensive because you're not dealing with a delivery system. You're dealing with who pays. And that was the whole thing with Obamacare, too. Look, Jamu is right. These guys didn't fail miserably on purpose. They failed because they're 5-foot-tall guys in 10 feet of water. And this is what happens when you have ideologues who don't know anything about business try to spend hundreds of millions of dollars setting up a business. They overpromise and they underdeliver, just like they have done from the very beginning. You can even go as far as to say they have blatantly told falsehoods, which I think is more apt to be true. If you really want the government to spend hundreds of millions of dollars and blow a website that you could have hired any 22-year-old software engineer in Silicon Valley to build, that's what you have with single-payer healthcare system. The government does not need to be involved.
Jamu, I know that you disagree.
Well, I don't care about the website as long as it gets fixed. Of course, the way that it was rolled out was pathetic. But yes, if you look at the benefits of single payer and what that would look like, there's a reason 70% of Americans approve of Medicare. There's a reason 60% of voters would kick out any member of Congress who tried to make changes to Medicare. So when it comes to running a single payer healthcare system, actually, that's something the government is already doing.
But it's because it's an entitlement. Find me someone who wants to turn away an entitlement. That's the problem. And it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we can't afford it. We're not fixing anything. All we keep doing is making bigger messes and punting to somebody else, right? You know, the president on Friday punted to the insurers and said, okay, you can have your plan back. Now it's their problem if they don't give it to you. That's all we keep doing. We're not fixing anything. We just make bigger messes.
Jonas?
I don't believe, actually, the president wanted this system, so I don't agree with Tracy in the sense that I think President Obama, if he had the control and could get the votes, would have gone single payer. I think this was the best next option he could get that was still dealing with this problem of uninsured people and people using emergency rooms and people with pre-existing conditions. I think when the dust settles, to kind of agree with the other guest, is that people will like this more when the site in 6 months is working, because at the end of the day, there are some people who will benefit, although other people are going to have higher costs. If you couldn't afford it, if you have pre-existing conditions, it will ultimately work out, sort of like on Medicare. And the other problem, the reason people like Medicare, just to be quick on that, is it is subsidized for every single person in it, unlike this program. So everybody's getting an artificially low rate when you're over 65 in healthcare. That's why it's so popular, although it does keep costs lower in some cases than private care.
Okay,
whoa.
Yeah, Gary B., go ahead.
Well, I'm just astounded that people are using Medicare, which is a single-payer system, as an example of some kind of great government program. Medicare is a pyramid scheme. Basically, the young pay for the old, as Jonas alluded to. It used to be 4-to-1 young to old. Now we're down to 2.5 young to old. Medicare expenses are going to double in the next decade. It has $17 billion a year of fraud. This is not exactly the Amazon of healthcare that we're promoting here.
So Jammu, that isn't the model that you're touting.
Well, I think Gary's out of sync with Americans who benefit from Medicare. They are quite happy with the services it provides.
Medicare.
And there are certain fixes that have to happen and have happened in looking at the fraud and cutting $700 billion out of waste that was in Medicare. It can be fixed, sure, but the way it is right now, it is good for the economy. It's good for the people who receive health insurance through it, and you're not going to be able to take it away from them.
Okay,
it's good for the economy?
John, last word.
Look, it's apples and oranges.
Well, we sure don't want a bunch of sick seniors sucking up our dollars at the end of their life for health care.
It's apples and oranges. Anybody who gets an entitlement, they're not going to be unhappy about it. The bigger number here, Jammu, is actually 90% of Americans who would throw out all members of Congress, and I can't figure out who those 10% of people are that actually support them. It must be their mistresses or their family, because the Congress running anything is a disaster. That's been proven.
Okay, all right, we got to go.